I trust by now you have received your story selection spreadsheet and have selected your stories. We want you to at least tell 2 or 3 stories and no more than 9. Now, the actual number of stories that you'll be asked to tell will be determined by how many people are within your seminar. If you have a very small group, then you'll be asked to tell more stories. If you have a large group, you'll be telling less stories. So look over the spreadsheet and select your stories, and then we will send you my version of your story. Now, the purpose for that is for you to kind of see the parameters of the story. You'll be creating your own story, but we want you to see this is the essence of what we want in the story. Just one major thing to remind you of before we teach you how to learn your story is that when it comes your turn to tell the story, be brief. We have 100 to 110 Bible stories that need to be told, and we can't take a lot of time with each story. Each story is going to be between 3 minutes and 5 minutes. There's an occasion the story may be up to 8 minutes long. There's not too many of those. And others will be as short as 45 seconds. So here are some things not to do. First of all, don't introduce yourself and don't introduce the story. Don't give an application after the story. Don't give us your comments about the story. Don't preach a sermon. Don't embellish the story other than what is in the Scripture. And don't read the story. We simply want you to give the story as a conversation. We're going to be at the site. We're going to give some history about the site. We're going to talk about the geography of the land. We're going to talk about the history of what led up to each of these stories and the customs of what the people were doing during the time when the story happened. And then the various people who have a story for that section will simply tell what happened. So when it's your turn, you'll simply just tell what happened. That's all there is to it. The key here is don't memorize the story. Instead, see it as mental pictures. Visualize the story. I'm going to give you a few little tips on how to deal with your story, how to prepare for your story. First of all, with every story, divide the story into sections. Easier to learn 2 or 3 little stories than one great big story. So automatically, as soon as you get it, divide it into sections and deal with each section separately. Next, read the story in the Bible. And I recommend that you read it in several translations. This gives you different words for the story, which moves you away from memorizing words. Read it in several translations, and then change the story to fit you. The one I send you is my version of it. I have put in the things that I think are important, and I have left out things that I want to leave out. You will have a different idea. So feel free to change the story. You say, oh my, John left this out. That is so important. I'm going to put that in. That's fine. If it's in the Bible, you can do it. Then take what you have left. Once you're all done, then circle all the comments, all of the statements. When anyone says anything, circle that. That's what you need to really focus in on. And then put little squares around all the proper names, people, places. But remember this, as much as possible, only use 3 names, not counting very common names. In other words, you don't have to count Jesus or Joseph or Abraham. These are very well-known names. all other names. Try to limit it to 3. Now, if you do 4, that's fine. But and in some situations, we've had storytellers that kind of want to show off that they know all these people's names. Well, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. People won't remember them, but that is up to you. Now, at this point, what I've given you so far have been things that you pretty well do with all the stories. At this point, I'm going to give you some ideas of how different people learn stories. I recommend that you try all of these for one story. And right away, you're going to see one of them fits you better than the others. Then kind of move in that direction. You want to, just to remind you, you want to stay away from memorizing words. You may think you're good at that, but when you get at that location and you're right there where it happened, you're going to have a memory lapse like you may not have experienced other times. And if you have the thing memorized, it'll be painful to watch you go through that. But if you have it as pictures, that works. That works. When you're there and you have developed whatever it is that you have worked on, it just comes to, and you'll just breeze right through it. Here are some things people have done. First of all is to take each of the sections. Now you have divided the story into sections. Draw a little stick figure for each of the sections. Make it as detailed as you want. This is not art class. You're not going to be showing this to anybody. This is just for your mind. Get as much detail into that section. Some people really like this, and that's just the end of it right there. You just know the story. Another idea is to color code it. Take some of the key thoughts through each of the sections and use different colors. And you can match up the colors in the various sections that kind of fit together. Another idea is to take the story and walk around the room. Put your story at various places around the room. You'll be amazed at people that do this. You get the whole story and then you walk around the room practicing telling your story. And the amazing thing is when you're at the site and it's your turn to tell the story, mentally, suddenly, you're in that room where your story's at. And you can easily tell the story. Another thing is to practice your story with overdramatic. Just overdo it. Now you won't tell your story this way. This is just you by yourself in a room, and you practice a story using big gestures and movements and overdoing your voice. And some people that really works for. Actually, I'm one of those people. If you just overdo it, it's amazing. It sticks in your brain. And then there's hand gestures. Hand gestures are especially useful if there's a list. Any type of list. If you, as you work it out, you say, there is a list right there. For instance, let me give you an illustration. Naomi was trying to get Ruth to go back to her family. And Ruth finally said, I'm not leaving you. Don't make me go. I'm going to stay with you. And where you live, I will live. And your people will be my people. And your God will be my God. And where you die, that's where I will die and be buried. And only death will separate us. That is a list. It's a conversation, but it's a list. Now, watch how I remember that. I'm not leaving you. Don't send me away. I'm going with you. Now, you just need to kind of practice that. Matter of fact, get your hands up and just do that one section. I'm not leaving you. Don't make me go. I'm staying with you. And where you live, I will live. Your people will be my people. Your God will be my God. And where you die, that's where I die and be buried. And only death will separate us. Now, obviously, if you're going to use something like that, you have to practice that, and you go through that whole thing while you're looking at the script. I'm not leaving you. Don't make me leave. I'm staying with you. Where you live, I'll live. Your people be my people. Your God will be my God. And where you die, that's where I die and will be buried. And only death will separate us. And you practice that. So whenever you have a story that has any type of list in there and a conversation that goes back and forth, hand gestures are absolutely the best. And then the key after all this is done, the absolute thing you have to do is practice telling your story 5 times. There's no exception here. Every story, 5 different times. If you have children, or grandchildren, your spouse, your Sunday school class, friends at a social gathering, people on the airplane, whatever, just practice your story. If you do it 5 times, then you'll have no trouble at all telling your story. And with all that preparation, I'll see you in Jerusalem.